In today's video, we're going to talk about how to graph inequalities. So an inequality is a mathematical statement that states one quantity is less than or greater than another quantity. It is a mathematical sentence that compares two expressions using less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, or not equal to. And that should be an equal sign with a line through it. Kind of small there. Alright, steps to graph an inequality. First, you have to determine if you have less than or equal to, less than or greater than, or less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to in the inequality. If you see greater than or less than, you'll need to use an open circle, like a pool ring. Or if you see greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, you'll need to use a closed circle, like a beach ball is filled in. Ask yourself, is the variable first? If the answer is yes, you go directly to step 2. If the answer is no, you must flip the order, including the inequality symbol. Determine which way the inequality symbol points, and this will help you see which way the arrow points. We graph the inequality using the correct type of dot and placing the arrow and pointing in the correct direction. So example number 1, we're going to graph each inequality. I have x is less than 3. My variable's first, so that one's already set up. I have a closed dot because it's less than or equal to 3. And my arrow is going to go to the left because pointing to the left are all the numbers that are less than 3. All the numbers to the right are greater than 3. All the numbers to the left are less than 3. All right, example 2. Notice my variable is not first, so I'm going to flip the whole thing around. I have b is greater than negative 2. So I'm flipping everything, including the symbol. So b is greater than negative 2, or I'm reading it backwards. Okay, b is greater than negative 2. So I'm going to have an open dot on negative 2. And all the numbers that are greater than negative 2 are to the right. So I'm going to draw my arrow pointing to the right. Example 3, I have b is less than negative 3. Variable's already first. So I'm going to put an open circle on negative 3 because this is strictly less than, no equal to. And I'm going to put my arrow to the left. Pointing to the left are all the numbers that are less than negative 3. Less than is to the left. Number 4, I have n is greater than or equal to 0. So I have a closed dot on 0. My variable's first. I don't need to switch anything around. And all the numbers that are greater than 0 are to the right. So my arrow is going to point to the right. Example number 5 asks us to write the inequality. So I first look at the number. I have a negative 1. And I'm going to pick a letter. I'm going to use x, and my dot's on negative 1. It's pointing to the left, so that's less than. And it's a closed dot, so it's less than or equal to. Question 6, I'm going to use my variable x. You can use n, you can use b, you can use any variable you like. I would not use o or s. O looks a lot like 0 and s sometimes looks like 5. My dot is on negative 4. My arrow is pointing to the right, so that's a greater than. And it's open, so it's not going to be greater than or equal to. It's just going to be greater than. A couple more examples on this side. I'm graphing some more complicated inequalities. All right, when do I flip the inequality symbol? Do this in 2 different situations. If I have to change the order because the variable isn't first. We did this not yesterday, we did this like 30 seconds ago. Or if I have to take the opposite of both sides because the variable is negative. So note that sometimes you'll have to flip the inequality symbol twice. Alright, so let's look at this first example. I have 3 is less than n. My variable is not first, so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this. I'm going to put my variable first. I'm going to have a greater than, and then I'm going to have a 3. which means I have an open dot on 3. All the numbers that are greater than 3 are to the right. This is going to point to the right. Example number 2. Notice my variable is negative, so I'm going to take the opposite of everything. The opposite of negative x is x. The opposite of less than is greater than, and the opposite of 1 is negative 1. So now I have x is greater than negative 1. Means an open dot on negative 1, and all the numbers greater than negative 1 are to the right. So my arrow is going to point to the right. Number 3, I have negative v is less than or equal to negative 3. Notice again my variable is negative. So in order to fix that, I'm going to take the opposite of everything. V is the opposite of less than or equal to is greater than or equal to, and the opposite of negative 3 is 3. So I have a closed dot on 3, and my arrow is going to point to the right, because that's where all the numbers greater than 3 are located, on the number line. Example number 4. I have negative 3 is greater than or equal to negative x. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this around so my variable is first. So I have negative x is less than or equal to 3. That's my first flip. Variable first. And then I notice that my variable is negative, so I'm going to flip everything again. I have x is greater than or equal to 3. So this is one of those ones that requires a double flip. The first time, in order to get the variable on the left, and then the second time, in order to make the variable positive. And this should be a, negative 3. The opposite of 3 is negative 3. So I have a closed dot on negative 3, and I'm looking for all the numbers that are greater than or equal to negative 3. So my arrow is going to point to the right. Last example, I have negative 3 is greater than or equal to negative n. So I'm going to flip this all around, and I have negative n is less than or equal to negative 3 to get my variable first. And then I want to make sure my variable is positive, so I have n is greater than or equal to 3. So I take the opposite of everything. It's going to be a closed dot on 3. And since I'm looking for the numbers that are greater than or equal to 3, my arrow is going to again point to the right. So a quick review of graphing inequalities, and we'll move on to solving next time.